have a very, very inspiring, I can't call it a story, but a very quick narration. Just note this point before I, dwell into the topic. Of course, the topic is about teenagers, and I believe being a teenager is a number, right? It's a number and it's an attitude. But you also bracket teenagers to an age, right? I have seen a lot of people at 70s and 80s who still look like teenagers, who still behave like teenagers, right? So I want to address every single of the 64 people here as teenagers today. So my quick narration is about a kid. Just think about this kid who's born to a very poor family where the father is a daily wage worker. He's a laborer. And this young kid fails, he goes to school, a village school, fails in his sixth grade and drops out and starts working in the field. And once he starts working in the field, his goal, he thinks that that is my ultimate goal, to become just like my father, who is a daily wage worker. But then one of the lecturers rescues him from there, puts him back into school. The kid grows, struggles very hard, goes through the schooling, tops the 10th standard, goes into college, tops the college, goes into a master's program, gets into IT, drops out, and comes back to do something very unique. And that's something unique I'm going to share a little later. Now, what I believe very powerfully, very, very convincingly is that every human being is gifted, only few people open the package. Every single human being is gifted. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so merciful. He gifts every single human being, gives equal opportunities to all of us. But all of us do not open the package. There are only few people who struggle to open that package. Now, my whole conversation and whatever sessions I'm going to take up are going to be around this concept of trying to help the youngsters open their potential. Now, recently we have had the experience of a very major disruption. What is a disruption? Something you don't expect, right? Something which hits you hard, and then you suddenly are shaken up. The entire world has seen a disruption, and everybody is down to their knees, right? They call it the disaster, the disaster, right? So the corona took the entire world by storm, and from across, from the economy to the houses to the emotions, everything went down. And I'm sure the teenagers had a good amount to face at home when they saw this whole turmoil happening. But when you see, Dr. Saab just was explaining how a believer's attitude goes towards even disruption, right? The attitude is so beautiful that if we come from the faith perspective, disruption also is about massive change. It's about an opportunity. It's about something you can look at it from a completely different perspective, right? That's what I believe. And that's what we all need to start looking at this particular whole disruption as an opportunity. Because if you see historically, all disruptions have led to great changes and great improvement for mankind. Any disruption, it would be very uncomfortable, but then it leads to a big change. And you just note, I'm just showing you a few pictures of disruptions. This is a completely 3D printed car. This car was completely printed in a machine, right? And this is a disruption. This was not imaginable. If 10 years back, somebody told there would be objects which are going to be printed in a printer, people would not believe it, right? And you know what? If you go back to the times of the Sahaba and the times of the Tabain, Tabain, and the later generations, they were acceptable to disruptions. We are today not, right? Hyperloop is one of the disruptions. It's going to change the way people are going to travel. And we as an ummah have to understand that disruptions are a part of our life. And that is what makes us unbelievably extraordinary. A human being makes all this because he has this quality of accepting disruptions and making the best of it. So the story which I told you about this young kid is the story of the kid who grew up to create India's #1 batter. Today, a very disruptive story. Imagine you make batter for dosas at home. Who would imagine to put it in a parcel and supply it to the stores? Today, ID is a 2,000 crore brand. It's beyond 2,000 crore. And Mustafa is a daily wage worker's son who came from that background. I had the good fortune of spending a lot of time with him, his family, and his parents. And I tried to understand what makes a person who dropped out, who failed in sixth standard, rise up and do something so crazy. And that's, I think, something that learning is something our children need to get. They need to understand this from all that perspective, which made Mustafa a keynote speaker in United Nations, in Harvard, and many other institutions. A very good friend of mine. So what I was, contemplating when I wanted to speak to all of you was that if one Mustafa can do it, there could be a lot of other Mustafas in the community who can stand up in different fields and make a mark and make a contribution. Because today we are looked up as consumers. Our community and the youth are looked up as consumers, not contributors. So that shift will make a huge difference to the youth of our community, wherever, irrespective of wherever they are. And what's the youth doing right now? If you see, there's a survey which says more than 90% of the youth are spending time in the things which are there on the screen, fame, habits, and a lot of rubbish, right? And this is so easily available. Is this what we need to direct our kids towards, or protect them from this? And if you have to protect them, how do we protect them? Why is it that we cannot make our kids inspired towards quality goals? Are these goals for the kids today, for the youngsters today, for the teenagers? And I'm sorry to say that a lot of the elders too are sucked into this. And that's becoming a kind of an environment within most of the houses today because of the easy access. So are these goals? They are not goals. They are not goals at all. And in fact, they are things which are going to destroy the entire community, the entire society. So what stops our youth from being the 10%? The 10% of the people who take on leadership, the 10% who really go out there and make a huge difference to themselves, their family, and the entire society. I believe, while discussing with Mustafa, I asked him what is the point which actually made that huge transformation. He told me, and he went quite, in detail, and he said unanswered questions. And those unanswered questions, I was trying to look out for them from different quarters, and I was not able to get those unanswered questions. The first question I could not answer was, who am I? Who really am I? That was the first question. The second question is, why am I here in this world? And I'm sure most of the youth, have this question because that's the discussion. Why am I here, man? What's my purpose? Why am I here? Third, who is my role model? They are taking role models by the dozens based on the fame or the trends, but they're not choosing role models with an understanding of quality. And the last, where am I going? What's my destination? These are the 4 questions somebody asked Mustafa, and they helped him out with the answers. And that's what made a huge change. And they helped him convert his conversation with himself to an empowered conversation. What is the biggest, what is something which the entire mankind today is struggling with? It's not communicating with others. It's communicating with one's own self. That is the biggest challenge. And that probably is one of the skills which we need to understand and develop, especially within the family and especially the youth of our community and the society. So I would, for me, the program which has been presented is just like this picture here, that we are all stuck with our own environment. And there's a huge world out there waiting for us to unleash all that beautiful stuff which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has loaded us with. If we do not jump, if we do not take that risk, if we do not get into something called as mastery, right? MBA jo hai, it's about mastery. It's just not about becoming a better person. It's just about going and taking that radical step to become a master in one field, in a particular direction. And I think this program which the brothers have put together actually has to trigger mastery in each of our teenagers. So with this quick
Yeah.
note, I end my talk, but I'm open for questions right now.
But I have a question for you. When you mention about role models, mashallah, which is so wonderful, and Jazakallah Shahjah Bhai for that comment, who are your role models, Habib Bhai, contemporary and classic?
Very difficult question. Starts with my granddad, my on the mother's side. My grandfather was a Hakim and a very powerful man. And I always used to look up to him and say that I should be like him. And then it progressed to my dad and my mom. Both are my role models because when we didn't have much at home, they used to pick up beggars from the road, bring them home, train them with small, small talent and skill, and let them out and tell them to stop begging and start working. And then it moved on to be uh, Tony Robbins happens to be one of my role models in the modern era, Anthony Robbins. And I have a couple of shiur who request me not to reveal their names. So some of the shiur are there, and all this has led to the most important role model we all have. Rasulullah Sallallahu has made the biggest impact, and that was what shifted and made a big turnaround in my life when I started studying about it. Jazakallah.